Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the sweltering dawn of ancient Vietnam, where the air is already so heavy with humidity you feel like you've been hugged by a wet blanket. Cicadas are screaming their little hearts out, and smoke curls lazily from bamboo houses as villagers start another day. You're not waking up in a comfy bed with AC. Oh no, you're sprawled on a reed mat. Your back sore. Your hair sticking from the damp. You probably won't survive this. By the way, but that's part of the fun. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Drop it in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You rub your eyes as the village stirs. Children squeal as they chase each other barefoot across the dirt paths. Roosters strut like they own the place, which, honestly, they sort of do. You step outside, and the first thing you notice is the smell: wood smoke, damp earth, and the faint, briny tang of the river not far away. No coffee machines, no cereal boxes, just the steady rhythm of survival. The bamboo houses around you are perched on stilts, raised above the ground to avoid flooding when the rains come. The walls creak in the morning breeze, patched with woven mats and palm thatch. It's not glamorous, but it's sturdy. And in this world, sturdy is luxury. Historians still argue whether the earliest Viet villages leaned more toward communal living or emphasized strong individual households. But either way, you're smack in the middle of a cluster where no one is ever truly alone. Privacy? Forget it, you sneeze. The whole street says, bless you. Villagers start their chores with an almost mechanical rhythm. One man sharpens a blade on a stone. The scraping sound as regular as a metronome. A woman hauls buckets of water balanced on a wooden pole across her shoulders. Her steps careful, precise. You spot kids helping too. Not by choice, but because childhood here is short, if you can carry a basket. You're put to work. As you shuffle toward the fields, you pass an elder smoking from a bamboo pipe. His lips stained black, not from cigarettes, but from the cosmetic practice of blackening teeth with plant resin. A sign of beauty and adulthood. Fringe fashion tip: next time someone brags about whitening strips, just tell them their smile would have been embarrassing in 10th century Vietnam. Beyond the houses lies the lifeblood of the community. The rice paddies. They glisten in the morning sun like mirrors cracked into green shards. Water buffalo snort, their horns curved like half-moons, their broad bodies wallowing lazily in the mud until someone hollers and yanks their ropes. You'll be spending most of your life ankle-deep in this muck. By the way, the mud squelches around your toes, leeches wait like little vampires, and dragonflies zip over your head. It's backbreaking. Endless work. And yet, every stalk matters. Miss a planting season, and the village starves. The tools in your hands are simple: a wooden plow, a woven basket, maybe an iron hoe if your village is lucky enough to trade for one. No tractors, no apps calculating the rainfall. You look up at the sky and pray the clouds do what they're supposed to. Historians still argue whether early Vietnamese farmers developed advanced irrigation systems independently or adapted them from Chinese influence. But either way, you're stuck with canals and dikes that need constant maintenance. But life isn't only toil. Even in these early hours, you hear laughter ripple across the fields. Jokes are swapped as easily as seedlings, because if you don't laugh, you cry. A man slips and falls face first into the mud, and instead of sympathy, he gets applause. You might not have Netflix, but physical comedy is timeless. And here's your quirky tidbit for the morning. Villagers sometimes wore amulets made from tiger teeth or bits of bronze shaped like frogs, believed to keep evil away from the harvest. Imagine explaining to your boss today that your productivity will increase if you hang a lucky frog pendant on your desk. Still, the pressure is crushing. Crops aren't just food, they're taxes too. Your lord expects a share. measured carefully by officials who seem to have an uncanny knack for finding excuses to demand more. A good harvest means survival, a bad harvest means hunger. Punishment, maybe even losing your land. And you can't quit. Peasants aren't freelancers. You're bound to the soil like rice to the paddy. By mid-morning, sweat runs down your spine, your back aches, and you start to dream wistfully of shade. The fields stretch endlessly, a shimmering patchwork that looks beautiful from afar but feels like chains when you're in it. Someone starts singing a work song, a slow chant to keep the rhythm, and you join in, your voice blending with dozens of others. It's monotonous, sure, but it keeps you from noticing how many more hours you've got until sundown. Later, you'll head back. Your basket heavier than your stomach will ever be. The sun will dip low, painting the horizon gold, and smoke will rise from every hut as families prepare their meager meals. And when you lie down again on that reed mat, your muscles screaming, the cicadas buzzing louder than your thoughts, you'll realize something. This cycle doesn't end. Sunrise to sunset, day after day, season after season, generation after generation, and unless you're one of the rare few born into power, you'll live and die right here. Your life woven into the same muddy fabric as everyone else's. The sun lifts higher, and by now you're wading through the rice fields like it's your second home, which it is. Whether you like it or not, the water splashes up to your knees, your reflection wobbly and distorted beneath the stalks of young rice. The mud clings like it has a personal vendetta, sucking at your feet with every step. If you thought your gym's leg day was bad, try doing squats in ankle-deep sludge while hauling baskets heavier than your dignity. The rhythm of the paddy dominates your senses. A plodding water buffalo heaves forward as someone prods it with a stick, its tail flicking lazily at flies. Its snort is loud enough to echo, and for a split second, you envy its ability to just flop down in the mud and wallow. You can't, you've got to keep planting, replanting, maintaining, harvesting. The cycle is endless. Historians still argue whether rice cultivation was introduced here directly from southern China or developed indigenously along the Red River Delta. But either way, it's clear that by this point in history, your entire existence revolves around these shimmering fields. The work isn't glamorous, but it's communal. Neighbors work shoulder to shoulder, singing call and response songs that keep the pace steady. The songs aren't just melodies, they're memory banks, carrying instructions, proverbs, and jokes within their verses. One line might remind you when to plant. The next might poke fun at the lazy guy who always hides at the back of the line. It's the ancient version of blasting a playlist while you work, except the bass drop is everyone laughing at your expense. The air is alive with creatures. Dragonflies skim the surface like neon darts. Frogs croak with the persistence of alarm clocks. And in the distance, you spot a white stork, head bobbing as it fishes for insects. Quirky tidbit of the day. Some villages believed storks were messengers of the rice spirits, little feathery inspectors making sure you weren't slacking off. Imagine if your boss today sent pigeons to spy on you while you work from home. The heat builds mercilessly, sweat drips from your brow into the muddy water, and every drop feels like an offering to the field. You pause, stretching your back, only to be nudged by another farmer reminding you that the seedlings won't plant themselves. You glance at the rows ahead, straight, uniform, demanding precision, miss a re, and you'll hear about it all week. Tools clatter nearby. Someone lifts a simple wooden rake. Another uses a bamboo basket to scatter seedlings with practiced flicks of the wrist. The equipment is primitive by modern standards, but ingenious for the time. A buffalo-drawn plow cuts a neat furrow. Children scurry behind, dropping seeds like breadcrumbs. Historians still argue whether iron tools were widespread in early Vietnam or reserved for wealthier regions. But in your hands, it's wood, rope, and sheer muscle power. The conversations that rise from the fields aren't all about farming. Some villagers gossip about who stole extra fish sauce from the market. Others complain about taxes. and a few whisper nervously about bandits rumored to lurk on the outskirts. Fear is never far away if the Lord doesn't get you. The rebels might. You try to focus on the seedlings in your hand, but the words hang heavy in the humid air. Lunch comes late, and it's simple: a handful of rice, maybe salted fish if you're lucky, wrapped in banana leaves and eaten squatting right there in the mud. The meal is fast, utilitarian, and surprisingly filling. You lick your fingers, wipe your face with your sleeve, and sigh. No packed bento, no refreshing soda, just the basics to keep your muscles moving. And honestly, after this much sweat, it tastes better than any five-star meal. The afternoon is grueling. The sun hangs overhead like a punishing overseer, baking your skin and making the fields shimmer in dizzying waves. Shadows shrink, the air wavers. You wonder if maybe, just maybe, skipping one row won't matter. But then you remember the stories. Lords punishing peasants for shoddy work. Families find or worse. The system doesn't reward rebellion. It squashes it like a bug underfoot. But even here, humor bubbles up. A child splashes his sister, and she shrieks so loudly a stork flutters away. An elder mutters that the rice stalks are growing faster than his beard. And everyone chuckles. You catch yourself smiling. Even as your back protests, this is the paradox. Life is brutal, but laughter makes it bearable. As the day drags on, clouds gather in the distance. You feel the air shift. The promise of rain. Rain is salvation and threat. Too little, and your crops wither. Too much, and they drown. You tilt your head skyward, silently bargaining with whichever spirit is listening. Historians still argue whether villagers at this time believed in a single overarching rice deity or a chorus of local field spirits. But either way, you've got prayers on speed dial. Finally, the sun slides lower, painting the paddies golden pink. You trudge back toward the village, feet caked in mud, muscles trembling, but your basket full. It's enough to feed your family another day. And maybe, just maybe, to satisfy the tax collectors, the buffalo lumbers alongside you, and for a moment you envy its patience. Tomorrow will be the same. Next season will be the same, and so will your children's lives, and theirs after them. The rice doesn't care, it grows. It demands, it binds, and you're just along for the ride. By now you're back in the village, your shoulders sore and your legs humming like overworked strings. The fields are behind you, but don't think the day is done. Oh no, this is just the halftime show. Village life pulses all around, and you're about to feel the tug of kinship that binds every bamboo wall, every smoky fire, every voice echoing across the dirt lanes. The houses creak softly as families return. They're raised on stilts, their shadows stretching as the sun tips west. Beneath them, chickens scatter, pigs root around, and kids duck in and out like sprightly spirits. You hear the thunk-thunk of wooden pestles pounding rice in mortars. A sound so constant, it's basically the background music of the village. It's steady, rhythmic, and slightly hypnotic. Imagine if lo-fi beats were just bam, bum, bam all day long. You enter your home, which isn't just yours, it's everyone's. Multiple generations share the same roof, and privacy is a concept reserved for dreams. Parents, grandparents, cousins, aunts, all packed together like sticky rice. If you thought your Wi-Fi password was family property today, wait until you see how every bowl of rice, every hammock, and every rumor is shared here. Historians still argue whether this kin-based structure leaned more toward matrilineal or patrilineal dominance in different periods. But what's clear is that you never truly stand alone. Daily tasks swirl in organized chaos. Women weave mats from reeds, their fingers flying with practiced speed. Men repair bamboo fences or fashion fish traps from split cane. Kids dart between chores and play, one moment chasing crickets in the dust, the next carrying small bundles of firewood. Everyone contributes, no excuses. If you're old enough to walk, you're old enough to haul up. The smell of cooking drifts through the air. Fish sizzling, rice steaming, herbs crushed under stone grinders. Families prepare their evening meals, and neighbors wander freely, chatting, sharing, poking their noses in. Quirky tidbit. Some early Vietnamese villages raised dogs not only as companions but as spiritual guardians, believed to ward off evil spirits. So while your neighbor's fluffy golden retriever today just wants snacks, your scrappy village dog is basically a supernatural security guard, but gossip flows like water. Who's secretly courting whom? Which family accidentally kept more fish than they should? And who muttered something disrespectful about the local chief? The talk is constant, and you better believe it matters. Reputation is survival. A single rumor can lift you into favor or sink you into disgrace faster than a flooded patty. The elders, meanwhile, perch on mats, their voices low but commanding. They tell stories, decide disputes, and ensure the clan stays on track. They don't have spreadsheets or courtrooms, but they've got memory and authority, and both are sharp as knives. A neighbor who refuses to share during a lean season, he'll hear about it from every elder, and good luck redeeming yourself. You feel the tug of collective responsibility. If one family slacks off, the whole village suffers. If one person offends the spirits, everyone might face misfortune. This isn't the rugged individualism you're used to. It's a web of mutual dependence, sticky and sometimes suffocating, but undeniably strong. Historians still argue whether this communal tightness came from necessity alone or from deeply ingrained cultural identity. But either way, you're tied in whether you like it or not. And here's a fun moment. A kid runs past, shrieking with laughter, holding up a frog. The poor creature squirms. And the child insists it's going to bring rain if he sings to it. The adults chuckle, half amused, half wary, because in a world where harvests mean survival, even frog songs might carry weight. As dusk falls, torches and oil lamps flicker to life. The air cools slightly, smoke curling from every fire pit. Families cluster together, eating from shared bowls, passing stories as eagerly as food. You slurp a mouthful of broth, salty and sharp, and glance around at the faces glowing in the firelight. Despite the hardship, despite the endless labor, there's warmth here. Kinship that cushions the blows of a brutal world. And when you lie back, the bamboo floor creaking beneath your mat, you hear it all at once. The murmur of voices, the cluck of hens, the crackle of firewood, the sigh of wind through palm leaves. Life in the village is relentless, but it's also a net holding you safely inside. You're not alone. You never are. Your stomach grumbles again. It always does. Because let's be honest, the portions aren't exactly generous. Daily meals in ancient Vietnam aren't Instagram-worthy feasts. They're survival kits disguised as dinner. You sit cross-legged on a bamboo mat, and in the center is the star of the show, a steaming bowl of rice. Not fluffy jasmine rice, not fried rice, just plain sticky grains. And you're grateful because without it, you'd probably keel over by noon tomorrow. Fish sauce fills the air with its salty, pungent tang. One dip of your chopsticks into that amber liquid, and the taste smacks you awake harder than a morning espresso. Quirky tidbit. Early fish sauce was so prized it sometimes doubled as a trade commodity, like the world's stinkiest currency. Imagine paying your taxes with a barrel of anchovy juice. Suddenly, Venmo doesn't sound so bad. Around the rice and sauce are modest side dishes, maybe a slice of salted fish, maybe some pickled vegetables. If it's a good day, you'll have a chunk of pork or duck. If it's a festival, sticky rice cakes wrapped in banana leaves make an appearance. Their sweet filling cutting through the usual salt overload. But most days, it's rice, fish sauce, and whatever greens the kids yanked from the riverbank. You chew slowly, savoring the texture. The rice is warm, filling, but it sticks to your teeth. The shrimp paste, fermented and fiery, punches your senses with a smell you'll never forget. People joke that you either love it or you leave the room. But in a world where flavor is scarce, you learn to love it fast. Historians still argue whether shrimp paste recipes were standardized in this era or wildly regional. But your nose doesn't care. It's sharp enough to clear your sinuses for a week. As you eat, family chatter buzzes around you. One cousin laughs about catching a giant crab. Another complains that the duck stole her breakfast. Jokes and grumbles float around the fire, softening the edge of hunger. Food isn't just fuel, it's community. Every bowl passed, every dip into the shared sauce, ties you tighter to the people beside you. And yes, you're eating with chopsticks, not forks. Long bamboo sticks that demand skill and patience. Drop a grain of rice, and someone will tease you for wasting dinner. Mastering them is like passing a rite of passage, because if you can't handle chopsticks, how are you going to handle life? Sometimes, meals come with a bit of superstition. Before taking the first bite, a pinch of rice is dropped near the fire as an offering to the ancestors. It's a silent reminder you don't eat alone. The spirits of the past share every meal, hovering invisibly over the bowls. That's comforting or creepy, depending on how you look at it. The flavors linger as the firelight flickers. It's not gourmet, but it's survival wrapped in simplicity. You don't get menus, you get what the land, river, and weather allow. And if tomorrow brings storm or drought, your bowl might be lighter, your sauce thinner. But tonight you choose slowly, laugh with your kin, and pretend for a moment that life is more feast than famine. Your belly's full, or as full as it's going to get, but now you notice something else. The way your tunic scratches against your skin, the way the villagers around you look dressed for both utility and symbolism. Clothing in ancient Vietnam isn't about Fashion Week. It's about survival, identity, and a bit of flair where you least expect it. Your daily outfit is simple. A hemp tunic dyed in muted earth tones. Indigo if you're lucky. Russet if you're practical. Hemp fibers scratch a little, but they last, and they breathe enough to keep you from fainting in the heat. The tunic hangs loose, tied with a sash around the waist. Below, you wear trousers rolled up for the patties, or sometimes just a wrap. Sandals. If you're lucky, you've got straw or wooden ones. More often, you're barefoot. Your sole's tougher than leather. Here's a quirky detail. In some periods, blackened teeth were considered peak beauty, a sign of adulthood and refinement. Imagine showing up to your first date, flashing a jet black smile, and being told, "Wow, you look so mature." Toothpaste companies today would have a meltdown. Jewelry glints faintly in the firelight. Bronze earrings, shell bracelets, maybe even beads from distant traders. These little ornaments speak volumes, status, charm, and sometimes protection. A frog-shaped pendant might dangle from someone's neck, warding off crop failure. A carved bone ring whispers of ancestral ties. Historians still argue whether these adornments leaned more toward fashion or ritual, but either way, they sparkle against otherwise humble clothes. The women wear long skirts or wraps, their hair pinned neatly with wooden sticks. Some decorate themselves with combs carved from ivory or bone, proof that even in a world of mud and toil, people carve out space for beauty. Men often keep their hair long, tied back, a silent nod to tradition. Shorn hair is rare and sometimes suspicious. What did he do to deserve that? Clothing also signals role and rank. Chiefs and wealthier villagers might flaunt dyed fabrics in deeper hues, while commoners stick to the basics. Silk, imported from China, is a shimmering luxury reserved for the elite. If you catch a glimpse of a Mandarin official in flowing robes, you know immediately power wrapped in fabric. You, by contrast, are wrapped in practicality and mud stains. Body adornment goes beyond fabric and metal. Tattoos and body painting appear in some regions, especially among tribes further south. Spirals, animals, and abstract lines mark skin as a canvas of identity. To outsiders, it looks fierce. To locals, It's a living history etched on flesh. Scholars debate whether these tattoos were primarily decorative, protective, or both, but you suspect they serve as a warning. Don't mess with me. I've got dragons on my arms. The firelight flickers, shadows dancing across clothes patched and repatched by countless careful hands. Mothers teach daughters to weave hemp. Fathers show sons how to tan hides. Every garment is a family story. Every patch a memory. You pull at your sleeve, rough yet familiar, and realize your outfit is as much a part of daily survival as the rice in your belly. The morning's work is behind you, and the afternoon heat starts to mellow into something bearable. That's when the heart of the village shifts toward another kind of survival, in the marketplace, not a sprawling neon-lit bazaar, but a shaded clearing where barter and chatter flow together in equal measure. You walk along a dirt path lined with mats, baskets, and makeshift stalls. The air smells like fish sauce, herbs, and smoke, all mixed together into a perfume you'll never forget. Coins. Rare. Metal currency exists in fits and starts, but for most folks here, it's all about barter. You hand over a basket of rice. You get a bundle of salt. You trade dried fish. You take home woven mats. It's a fluid system where value isn't measured in digits, but in what your family needs that day. Quirky tidbit. Some early markets even used cowrie shells as proto-currency, proof that shiny seashells once bought you more than just vacation memories. Historians still argue whether barter dominated because coins were scarce, or because the local economy simply trusted face-to-face trade more than stamped metal. The crowd hums with energy. Women squat behind wicker baskets piled high with greens, herbs, and roots. Men lay out traps, tools, and the occasional hunk of bronze. Kids dart between the legs of buyers, snatching up spilled grains or laughing at a chicken that's broken loose from its tether. Chickens are basically chaos incarnate. Every market has one rogue bird, and today it's sprinting toward the river like it's late for a date. The bargaining is a theater all its own. Voices rise and fall in dramatic arcs. This gourd is too small. You insult me. Insult you. This gourd is blessed by the gods. You know full well both sides will settle somewhere in the middle, but not before putting on a show worthy of applause. And make no mistake, everyone's listening. Gossip spreads here faster than the smell of grilled fish. Who argued with the tax collector? Who sneaked into whose hut last night? The market isn't just where you feed your stomach. It's where you feed your curiosity. Some stalls are downright mesmerizing. Bronze jewelry gleams in the fading light, shaped into spirals, frogs, and birds. You run your fingers over a drum decorated with swirling patterns. The famous Jongson drums, carved with scenes of warriors, dancers, and animals. They're musical instruments, ritual objects, and status symbols all in one. You wonder how many sacks of rice you'd have to trade to bring one home. Spoiler, too many. The soundscape is vivid. Hawkers shouting, babies crying, a flute player testing a tune in the corner. The clash of dialects is everywhere too. Because markets are crossroads, traders from nearby villages bring salt or honey, and sometimes you even hear snippets of foreign tongues, Cham, Khmer, or Chinese woven into the chatter. For a moment, your muddy world feels vast. A hush ripples suddenly. A tax collector approaches, his robe crisp, his ledger sharp. Everyone straightens. Voices drop. He surveys the goods with a hawk's eye, calculating how much the Lord deserves. You clutch your basket tighter, hoping your family offered enough last week. Too little, and you risk fines. Too much, and your own table suffers. The balance is as fragile as a clay pot. Yet despite the tension, there's joy here too. A child tugs at your sleeve, holding up a sweet rice cake wrapped in banana leaf. You grin, hand over a handful of dried fish, and bite into the soft, sticky sweetness. For one blissful moment, the grind of patties and taxes fades into sugar on your tongue. The market winds down with the setting sun. Families gather their goods. Chickens are finally wrangled, and gossip carries home in baskets as surely as rice and fish. You trudge back, sack a little lighter but heart oddly buoyed, because in this swirl of barter, laughter, suspicion, and sweetness, you glimpse the pulse of village life. Not just survival, but connection. By now the shadows stretch long across the dirt lanes, and the marketplace chatter fades into drum beats. That's your signal. Festivities are beginning. The life of a peasant may be full of mud, sweat, and tax collectors with permanently raised eyebrows, but festivals are the moments where color bursts into an otherwise earth-toned world. You drift toward the communal square, where torches flicker and smoke curls into the twilight. The air thrums with excitement, and already the rhythmic pounding of drums reverberates in your chest. Someone pulls you by the sleeve and hands you a sticky rice cake. Its banana leaf wrapping steaming. You bite and the sweet bean filling melting on your tongue, and suddenly the day feels worth it. A procession emerges. Villagers don carved masks, wide-eyed animals, grimacing demons, and cheeky spirits. Their steps are exaggerated, almost comic, and children squeal with delight. Quirky tidbit. In some places, festival masks were believed to frighten away evil spirits, which means those goofy papier-mâché grins are actually part-time bouncers for the supernatural world. Imagine your Halloween costume doubling as a divine security system. The music grows. Bronze drums, the pride of the Jongson culture, boom with deep, resonant power. Their surfaces are etched with swirling designs, little cosmic spirals that catch the firelight. Historians still argue whether the drums were primarily ritual instruments or also used in warfare. But tonight they are instruments of joy. Flutes trill, lutes twang, and the entire village sways in time. Offerings pile up at the altar near the center of the square. Baskets of rice, fruits, flowers, and even a chicken or two are placed reverently, smoke from incense weaving around them. You bow, not entirely sure which spirit you're supposed to address. But you whisper thanks anyway. Better safe than sorry. After all, nobody wants a bad harvest because they forgot to tip the gods. Then come the games. Young men test their strength in tug-of-war, muscles straining as cheers erupt. Women compete in weaving races, hands moving faster than your eyes can follow. Kids scamper after hoops or wrestle for candy tossed by laughing elders. The whole square transforms into a carnival of sweat, laughter, and pride. Food stalls light up the edges. Grilled fish crackles over open flames. Skewered meat sizzles, and rice wine flows in clay cups. You take a sip, burning, sharp, but strangely comforting. The jokes flow freer, the music faster. Someone bursts into a mock sword dance, nearly tripping over his own feet, and the crowd howls with laughter. Even hardship takes a back seat for one night. As the moon climbs higher, the ritual dancing begins. Figures in masks stomp and spin, their movements both comical and eerie. Firelight warps their shadows, turning them into towering shapes on the bamboo walls around the square. You shiver, not entirely sure if it's the chill or the thought that maybe, just maybe, the spirits are dancing too. The festival stretches deep into the night. For once, the fields don't demand your body. The Lord doesn't loom over your thoughts. And the tax collector isn't counting your grain. For a few fleeting hours, you live fully sweating, laughing, praying, singing, bound to your neighbors in joy instead of fear. And tomorrow, well, tomorrow you'll be back in the mud. But tonight, you let the drums carry you. The drums fade slowly, but the echoes linger as you walk home through lantern-lit lanes. Sleep should come, but instead you hear a soft plucking of strings, and you follow it. Music in ancient Vietnam isn't just background noise, it's memory. It's ritual. It's the glue holding stories together. Tonight, it's going to pull you deeper into the village's soul. You find a small circle near the fire, where a man cradles a janbao, a single-string instrument that hums with eerie, bending notes. One string, one bamboo pick. Yet the sound swells like a whisper from the ancestors themselves. The firelight flickers across his face as he leans into the instrument, coaxing tones that rise and fall like waves. Historians still argue whether the John Bao originated this early or appeared later. But the essence, monochordic, simple, hypnotic, is timeless. Beside him, another villager plucks a Jean Nguyen, the moon lute, its round body glowing faintly in the firelight. Each note cuts sharp, contrasting with the John Bao's size. Together they weave a melody that is half lullaby, half warning. Children lean forward, wide-eyed, and even the dogs flop onto the ground, ears twitching to the rhythm. Then comes the singing. An elder clears her throat, and suddenly the night fills with oral lore. She chants a tale of ancient kings, of battles fought along the Red River, of spirits disguised as cranes guiding heroes home. Her voice cracks with age but never falters in memory. Quirky tidbit: some storytellers would deliberately insert riddles or jokes mid-epic, just to keep drowsy listeners awake. Imagine Homer stopping mid-Iliad to crack a dad joke. Kids giggle, then hush, entranced again. The elder's words roll like waves, painting images brighter than any inked scroll. She describes warriors with bronze spears glinting in sunlight, maidens weaving spells into their hair, crocodiles lurking at the edges of rivers, their jaws snapping like thunder. You shift uneasily. Crocodiles might be myth here, or they might not. Better to keep your toes out of deep water tomorrow. The rhythm builds as younger villagers join in with claps, stomps, and improvised percussion, sticks, stones, whatever is handy. The beat syncs with your heartbeat, and soon you're lost in the swell of it. You realize that this is more than entertainment. It's memory carved into sound. Every child listening will repeat these tales years later, adding their own twist, keeping history alive without parchment or pens. Scholars debate whether these performances were primarily communal bonding or subtle political reinforcement, reminding peasants of loyalty, courage, and ancestral power. But to you, sitting barefoot in the dust with the sticky rice on your lips, it feels like both. The stories keep you tethered, reminding you that you belong to something larger, something older. The night thickens, the instruments fade, replaced by the soft hum of lullabies. Mothers rock babies, crooning songs of rivers, mountains, and stars. The moon slides overhead, silver on bamboo leaves. You lie back, eyes heavy, the cadence of stories still echoing in your ears. And just before sleep takes you, you think, this music is more than sound. It's the pulse of a people refusing to be forgotten. The music fades into silence, but the night isn't empty. You glance toward the corner of the village, where incense curls lazily above a small wooden shrine. Here, life is ruled not only by chiefs or lords, but by the unseen hands of ancestors and spirits. In ancient Vietnam, faith isn't tucked away in temples, it spills into every home, every meal, every cautious step. You shuffle closer, and the scent of burning wood and herbs stings your nose. Families cluster around the shrine, their faces glowing in the lamplight. Bowls of rice, small cups of rice wine, and even the occasional fish head are placed carefully before carved figures and ancestral tablets. Whispered prayers rise and fall. You hear names repeated, soft as lullabies, because remembering isn't optional. It's survival. Historians still argue whether ancestor worship grew primarily from indigenous traditions or from imported Chinese influence. But here, it doesn't matter. The truth is simple. The dead aren't gone. They hover, invisible house guests who must be fed, respected, and consulted. Forget them, and your luck withers faster than unwatered rice shoots. Shamans sometimes join the gatherings, rattling charms of bone and bronze. Their chants rise sharp, summoning spirits or driving them away. A child sneezes, and everyone nods knowingly. Clearly a spirit passed through. Quirky tidbit: some shamans swore by talismans made from crocodile teeth, hung at doorways to scare off wandering ghosts. So yes, even reptiles got a side hustle in the spirit economy. The villagers tell stories of restless ghosts who linger after violent deaths. They haunt rice fields, bamboo groves, riverbanks, always hungry, always watching. Parents warn kids not to wander at night, lest the mai tug them into the reeds. You shiver and edge closer to the fire, suddenly grateful for the crackle and glow. But not all spirits are threats. Some are protectors. Farmers whisper to the rice goddess, hoping she blesses their paddies with just the right balance of rain and sun. Fishermen leave offerings at the river's edge for water spirits, bargaining for a safe catch. Every task, from weaving mats to planting seeds, has an unseen audience. Fail to honor them, and the punishment might not come from the chief, but from the invisible. You bow with the others, a pinch of rice between your fingers. You place it gently on the altar, whispering thanks to names you never met. Maybe they'll hear, maybe they won't. But the act ties you backward, generation to generation. As firmly as the bamboo stilts beneath your house, the fire crackles lower. The chants soften. Shadows grow long against the walls. You sit back, head heavy, realizing that in this world, daily survival isn't just about mud and rice. It's about weaving yourself into a fabric where the living and the dead share the same space, the same breath, the same endless cycle. The incense has burned down to ash, the night heavy with whispers, and now your gaze shifts toward the larger world beyond your bamboo walls. For while you're bound to the soil and spirits, there's another presence that looms over every breath you take. The court and the local chiefs. Power here doesn't just mean who grows the most rice. It's about who controls it, who measures it, and who taxes it with the sharp precision of a knife. At dawn, you hear the horns and drums announcing the arrival of mandarins. They stride into the village in flowing robes, dyed deep indigo and saffron, embroidered with patterns of cranes and clouds. The robes shimmer, making it clear they've never seen mud the way you do. Their hats perch stiffly, their long sleeves swish, and you suddenly feel the weight of their gaze. One glance at your basket of rice, and your sweat belongs to them. Historians still argue whether the earliest Vietnamese courts had genuine autonomy from Chinese dynasties or operated as satellites under tribute. But here, in this dusty lane, the debate doesn't matter. To you, the mandarins are absolute. They unroll scrolls, tallying quotas and characters you can't read, their brushes scratching like insect legs on parchment. Numbers, numbers, always numbers. The local chief arrives too, his presence both reassuring and terrifying. He's dressed less extravagantly but commands respect nonetheless. He knows every family by name, every child by face. He'll pat your shoulder one moment, then remind you sternly about taxes the next. His word can settle disputes, but his favor can also vanish if you cross him. Quirky tidbit. Some chiefs were rumored to wear amulets under their robes, carved with turtles or dragons, to symbolize their divine right to rule. So while you've got frog charms for farming luck, he's got dragon bling for political power. The chief inspects tools, granaries, even the water buffalo. He asks about births and deaths, about marriages and land boundaries. It feels less like leadership and more like surveillance. But you nod respectfully, bowing low, because in this world, dissent isn't expressed in words, it's swallowed quietly. Like bitter tea, you shuffle forward, clutching your rice. The mandarins measure it carefully, pouring it into wooden containers, leveling the tops with practiced hands. They mark down the numbers, nodding with grave satisfaction. You exhale in relief. It's enough. For this season, at least, your family will escape punishment. You glance sideways, though, and notice your neighbor's face has gone pale. His basket is lighter, his quota unmet. Tomorrow, whispers of fines or confiscation will ripple through the village like a bad cough. Scholars debate whether peasants had any real means of resistance. Some point to small-scale revolts, others to hidden networks of quiet disobedience. Families underreporting their harvests, slipping extra sacks to neighbors to balance quotas, but standing here, under the weight of embroidered robes and stern faces, rebellion feels like a fantasy. The mandarins depart as swiftly as they came, their robes sweeping dust into the air, their ledgers tucked away like weapons. The chief lingers a little longer, chatting with elders, accepting gifts of tea or fruit. His smile is wide, his eyes sharper than a hawk's. By the time he leaves, you feel drained, relieved, yet uneasy, because you know his memory is long, his authority absolute. When night falls again, you sit by the fire, staring into the flames. The crackle masks your muttered thoughts. What if the harvest fails? What if the chief decides your family owes more? What if one careless word reaches the mandarins? Power here isn't faceless, it has names, robes, ledgers, and very sharp eyes. And tomorrow, when you trudge back to the paddies, you'll carry not only your basket but the invisible weight of rulers who measure your life in grains of rice. The mandarin's footsteps fade, but their shadow lingers in your thoughts. And just when you think the day might ease into calm, another sound cuts through the village. The sharp clash of spears, the thud of drums, the bark of orders. Warfare is never far away in ancient Vietnam. It lurks at the edge of the paddies, just beyond the tree line, waiting to yank you out of your mud-soaked routine. You edge closer to the commotion and see men gathered in the clearing, their bodies glistening with sweat, their hands gripping weapons. Spears gleam in the sun, bronze tips flashing with dangerous beauty. Some carry bows strung tight with bamboo and sinew, arrows fletched with goose feathers. Shields of wood and hide lean nearby, scarred with use. Historians still argue whether these weapons were primarily for defense against neighboring tribes or for resistance against larger invading forces. But the answer hardly matters when the blade is right in front of you. The drumming isn't festive tonight, it's martial. Each beat signals drills, and the warriors stomp in unison, spears thrusting forward in time. You, as a peasant, are not a warrior, but don't think you're off the hook. When the chief raises a levy, you're expected to haul supplies, patch fortifications, or march with the column, carrying rice and water. Your shoulders ache just imagining the loads. Quirky tidbit. Some early warriors tied charms to their spear shafts. Little bronze frogs or carved figures, believed to summon luck in battle. Because apparently, nothing says I'm ready to fight like accessorizing your weapon with amphibians. The training is both terrifying and mesmerizing. Two men spar, spears clashing, their movements swift and brutal. One feints left, the other counters with a sweeping strike. Dust rises, villagers cheer, and you realize these mock battles are equal parts entertainment and rehearsal for survival. Children imitate the moves with sticks, already absorbing the rhythm of violence like a second language. The elders murmur stories of past wars, raids from neighboring tribes, skirmishes with northern forces, legends of heroes who rose from villages like yours. Names are spoken with reverence, their deeds etched into memory even if no stone ever bore their record. Historians still argue whether these tales reflect historical figures or mythologized composites. But around this fire, they feel as real as the mud on your skin. Suddenly, a horn blares. A messenger rushes in, robes dusty, face pale. His words tumble out. Bandits spotted near the river. Maybe rebels. Maybe worse. The chief barks orders, and panic hums like electricity. Men grab spears. Women herd children inside. Elders call for offerings to the ancestors. You clutch your tunic, heart racing. Tonight, maybe you'll be hauling stones to reinforce the palisade instead of sleeping. The line between farmer and fighter blurs dangerously thin. One season you plant rice, the next you carry a spear, and whether you fight or not, you're a part of the machine. Feeding soldiers, patching wounds, carrying news. The rice paddies may be your battlefield, but war is never more than a day's march away. The shouting fades, But the tension stays thick. You know what's coming. Trade, the great bloodstream of ancient Vietnam, carrying not just goods but ideas, fears, and temptations. For even in your mud-bound village, whispers drift in about strange spices, glittering beads, and silk so fine they slip through your fingers like water. At the market's edge, a caravan arrives. Traders unload baskets that sparkle with unfamiliar treasures. Chinese silk gleams like liquid moonlight, dyed in colors so vivid you almost doubt they're real. A bolt of red silk unfurls, and the crowd gasps. No hemp tunic could ever compete. Beside it, Indian beads clatter in a wooden tray, each one polished smooth, glinting like candy you'll never taste. Cham merchants from the southern coast spread aromatic spices, cinnamon, cloves, pepper so sharp it makes you sneeze just walking by. The air feels richer, heavier. For a moment, you forget mud and taxes. You imagine yourself draped in silk, jangling with beads, eating meals seasoned with more than salt and fish sauce. Yes, but quirky tidbit. Some records suggest that black pepper was once valued almost like gold in certain regions. So much so that people nicknamed it Black Diamonds. Imagine sneezing away half your fortune at dinner. But trade is more than trinkets. Historians still argue whether Vietnamese villages eagerly embraced foreign luxuries or resisted them to preserve local traditions. Some say silk and bronze mirrors quickly reshaped local fashion. Others claim peasants viewed them as dangerous temptations, symbols of corruption. All you know is that everyone stares, hungry not just for food but for a glimpse of something beyond their fields. The traders speak in tongues that twist your ears. Some words you catch, others slide past like river water. But even if you don't understand, you feel the shift. Your small world is part of something sprawling, unpredictable. Coins jingle in some hands, shells in others. Deals are struck with gestures and nods. Of course, danger rides alongside opportunity. More goods mean more taxes, more chances for chiefs and lords to tighten their grip. You see the tax collector again, his eyes gleaming brighter than any bead, already calculating what share the lord deserves. Trade also brings whispers of war, Chinese armies, Cham raiders, distant empires flexing power. Every bead, every spice, carries with it a trace of politics. Still, tonight you finger a simple glass bead, warm from the trader's hand, and slip it into your pouch. It's small, fragile, but it feels like magic, a sliver of another world resting in your palm. Proof that even mud-bound lives can brush against glittering horizons. The bead you slipped into your pouch still glimmers faintly, but by the next morning you're reminded that luxuries don't plow fields. What really keeps life turning here are the crafts and tools fashioned by calloused hands, day after day, with a mixture of ingenuity and stubborn endurance. Your ears catch the boom of a bronze drum, not in celebration this time, but in testing. The artisan leans over the great instrument, carved with spirals, stars, and marching figures. He strikes it, the sound rolling like distant thunder. These drums are more than decoration. They announce festivals, call warriors, even signal warnings across valleys. Historians still argue whether they were primarily sacred ritual objects or multi-purpose tools of communication. But either way, the tone lingers long in your bones. Nearby, a woman weaves a bamboo basket, her fingers moving so quickly you can barely follow. The strips squeak and snap, crossing in perfect patterns until the basket takes shape, strong enough to carry rice or fish, light enough to sling over your shoulder. You realize, without these baskets, your harvest would rot in the mud. Bamboo is everywhere, roofs, fences, tools, and it hums through daily life like an invisible backbone. You glance at a blacksmith's corner. The heat radiates as he works a lump of iron, hammering sparks into the air. Iron plows are rare treasures here, but when they appear, they bite deeper into the soil, saving time and sweat. Still, wood and bone tools remain common. patched and repatched until they splinter. Quirky tidbit. Some villages believed blacksmiths held mystical powers. Their forges gateways to underworld fire, which means half the kids dare each other to peek too close. Other crafts shine with delicate artistry. Potters spin clay into jars that will store pickled vegetables or rice wine. Woodworkers carve boats for the rivers, their narrow hulls slipping easily between banks. Women dye cloth with indigo, pounding leaves into vats until the fibers turn deep blue. Each task is humble, but each is survival stitched into form. Scholars debate whether these crafts were mostly local or connected to larger trade networks. Were bronze drums and fine pottery made by traveling specialists or rooted families? You don't know. What you do know is that without these hands shaping the world, your life would collapse. You heft a basket, sturdy and light, and sling it over your shoulder. You dip your fingers in the indigo vat, watching them stain blue. You hear the drum boom again, its voice vibrating through the earth, and you realize, in a village bound by mud and hunger, tools and crafts are the true silent guardians. The forge's glow dies down. The baskets are stacked neatly, and the drums fall silent. But the pulse of village life doesn't stop. It flows into something even deeper. Gender roles and family duty, the invisible scaffolding that keeps this whole mud and bamboo world standing. You wake before dawn again, and already women are at work. One stokes the fire, smoke curling up through gaps in the roof. Another bends over the mortar, pounding rice into flour, her rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Outside, a girl leads water buffalo to the fields, while her younger brother trails behind, balancing a bundle of firewood. Childhood isn't an escape. It's an apprenticeship into endless duty. In this world, hierarchy begins at home. Fathers are expected to guide, sons to obey, mothers to nurture, daughters to support. That's the script, but real life is often messier. Quirky tidbit. Some legends tell of women who ruled in their own right, like the Trung sisters centuries later, who raised armies against foreign invaders. Around the fire, these stories are whispered half with awe, half with nervous laughter, as if to say, yes, it happened, but don't expect it every day. Historians still argue whether early Vietnam leaned toward matrilineal systems in its earliest tribal stages, later shifting to patriarchal norms under Chinese influence. In some villages, women kept rights to property or led rituals. In others, they were firmly tethered to hearth and childbearing. What's clear for you, sitting cross-legged in the bamboo floor, is that the balance of power shifts like river currents, always tugging between the visible and the hidden. Marriage is less about romance and more about alliance. Families weigh dowries, fields, and reputations. A daughter's wedding ties households together as tightly as woven bamboo, and her life becomes a bridge of labor between two clans. Yet behind the scenes, mothers wield soft but formidable power, guiding decisions with advice that sounds like suggestion but carries the weight of command. Children learn their place quickly. Boys follow fathers into the paddies, their hands blistering on tools too large for them. Girls learn to weave, to cook, to manage the household's fragile stores, but everyone bends under the same truth. Family honor isn't optional. If you fail, you don't just shame yourself. You stain the whole line stretching back through the ancestors and forward through your children. At night, as the fire crackles low, you hear a grandmother scolding a boy for speaking too boldly. "Remember your place," she snaps, and he bows his head. Then she tells a tale of a brave woman who tricked an enemy general with wit alone. The boy's eyes widen. The lesson: rules exist, but cleverness sometimes bends them. So you lie on your mat, listening to the symphony of duty, mothers humming lullabies, fathers sharpening tools, siblings arguing over chores. It's a constant negotiation of roles, visible, invisible, rigid, flexible, and in the flicker of lamplight, you realize that survival here isn't just mud and rice. It's the web of expectation, obligation, and whispered power stretching through every bamboo wall. Morning comes, and for once you're not trudging to the patties. Instead, you watch the smallest villagers at play, and you realize that even in this mud-caked, tax-burdened world, childhood has its sparks of joy. Children chase crickets through the grass, their squeals piercing the heavy air. One boy proudly ties a string to a beetle, letting it buzz in circles like a living kite. Another dares his friends to balance on a bamboo pole stretched across a ditch. They tumble, laugh, and climb back up again. Mud is more playground than punishment here. Quirky tidbit. Some ancient Vietnamese children were said to train fighting cocks for fun, raising them as both pets and little gladiators. Imagine your neighbor's kid asking if your chicken is ready to battle after school. Learning starts early, but not with desks and chalk. It's imitation. Girls shadow their mothers, practicing weaving by braiding grasses into uneven mats. Boys copy fathers, swinging sticks like hoes or spears. By the time they're 7 or 8, they've already absorbed the rhythm of planting, pounding, and hauling. Childhood isn't sheltered. It's a preview of adult life on loop. Still, there's wonder. At night, elders gather the children and recite folk tales. They memorize stories of mountain spirits, river gods, and heroes who rode elephants into battle. These tales are sticky, lodging themselves in memory and surfacing decades later, retold to the next round of wide-eyed listeners. Historians still argue whether this oral tradition served more as entertainment or as deliberate moral training. But to a child clutching a frog pendant, it's both bedtime story and survival manual. Education, when it edges beyond oral lore, is rare and precious. If you're lucky enough to belong to a family with influence, you might catch a glimpse of calligraphy lessons, Chinese characters painted with delicate brushes. You crouch in awe, watching black ink unfurl into symbols that seem magical, like tiny spells. Most kids never touch a brush, but those who do may rise far beyond the patties, their minds carrying them where their feet never could. And when the day winds down, the children collapse into heaps of laughter, limbs tangled, hair wild. They may grow into farmers, warriors, or servants of the court, but tonight, their only duty is to giggle, chase shadows, and dream under the glow of fireflies. The children's laughter drift into the night, but your thoughts return to the darker side of survival, health, medicine, and superstition. Life here isn't cushioned by pharmacies or sterile clinics. A cough lingers, a fever burns, a cut festers, and suddenly the whole household is on edge. Your neighbor boils a pot of herbs, the sharp scent of ginger and lemongrass filling the air. She ladles the bitter brew into a clay cup, muttering that it'll drive out the wind. You take a sip, gag immediately, and she smirks. If it tastes awful, it must be working. Quirky tidbit. Some villagers swore by a concoction involving crocodile dung mixed into ointments, claiming it cured everything from skin rashes to bad luck. No, you don't want to know how they harvested it. Historians still argue whether ancient Vietnamese medicine leaned more heavily on indigenous plant knowledge or early Chinese influences. What's certain is that remedies were everywhere. Bamboo shoots crushed into poultices, ginseng brewed for strength, garlic chewed against colds. You live in a pharmacy without labels, where every leaf has a rumor attached to it. But medicine isn't only herbs, it's ritual. A shaman shakes rattles of bone and bronze, chanting over a sick child. Families tie red cords around wrists to ward off evil spirits. Some hang tiger teeth above doors, convinced their growl echoes in the spirit world. You'd laugh. But when your neighbor's fever breaks after a night of chanting, you start to wonder. Clean water, not guaranteed. Parasites and infections lurk in every puddle. A small cut from a farming tool could mean disaster if it festers. You wash it with rice wine, sting and all, praying the spirits of the field aren't offended. Yet amid the risk, resilience grows. People survive because they adapt. They pass down remedies like treasure, share warnings like gifts, and trust in both herbs and whispers. And as you sip another foul brew, face wrinkled, you realize health here isn't just about curing the body, it's about keeping balance between the seen and unseen. The bitter taste of herbal brew still lingers on your tongue when the sky shifts. Dark clouds roll in, heavy and swollen, and suddenly you understand why people here never take stability for granted. Storms, floods, and survival. These aren't occasional inconveniences. They're constant companions in ancient Vietnam. The first raindrops slap the ground like thrown pebbles. Within minutes, the sky opens, and sheets of water pound the village. The bamboo roofs rattle, thatch dripping, and children shriek as they race to pull in baskets left outside. You join the scramble, hauling firewood under cover, shoving tools against the wall. It's not just rain, it's a siege. The paddies flood instantly, their mirrors of water swelling into endless sheets. Too much rain, and your careful planting drowns. Too little, and the rice shrivels. You squint through the downpour, praying the dikes hold. If they break, you'll spend days rebuilding walls of mud with nothing but your hands and aching backs. Historians still argue whether early Vietnamese communities relied more on elaborate communal irrigation or simple reactive dikes, but either way, you're knee-deep in muddy chaos. The wind howls, snapping branches, toppling bamboo, livestock bawl in panic, pigs rooting under houses, water buffalo grumbling against their tethers. You clutch your tunic tighter, wishing for walls made of stone instead of creaking bamboo stilts. Quirky tidbit. Some villages believed floods were punishments from river spirits angered by disrespect. So after storms, they tossed offerings, bananas, chickens, even jars of rice wine into the swollen waters, hoping to appease the unseen. When the rains finally ease, destruction sprawls around you. Fields flattened, fences washed away, roofs torn. Families shuffle through the wreckage, salvaging what they can. Rebuilding isn't optional, it's instinct. Men repack walls with fresh mud. Women weave new thatch. Children gather fallen branches for fuel. Complaints are rare. Laughter bubbles up even here. A shaky defiance against despair. And just when the sun peeks out again, you realize the pattern? Destruction, repair, survival. Life here is a constant negotiation with nature. Every storm feels personal, like a test, and yet, somehow, every family rises to meet it, soaked but unbroken. The storm's fury has passed, but the echoes still cling to the bamboo walls. Evening settles gently, wrapping the village in smoke, firelight, and weariness. You sit cross-legged near the hearth, a bowl of rice warm in your hands, and reflect on the cycle of life here. How every sunrise pulls you back into mud and sweat, and every sunset reminds you that you are still, miraculously, alive. The fire crackles, casting golden light across familiar faces. Children lean drowsily against their mothers, eyelids fluttering, hair still damp from the rains. Elders murmur quietly, their voices weaving memories of floods survived, harvests lost and regained, battles fought and endured. Their words are slow, deliberate, carrying the weight of generations. The air smells of wood smoke, fish sauce, and damp earth, but it feels like home. Even as hardship presses in from every direction, lords demanding rice, storms ripping roofs, spirits needing constant appeasement, you sense the resilience humming beneath it all. Historians still argue whether this resilience was born of necessity or cultural stubbornness, but sitting here, it feels like the only possible way to exist. You remember the laughter in the fields? The songs that kept your hands moving? The gossip that made the market buzz? The stories that glued children's imaginations together? You remember the masks, the drums, the spirits, the charms dangling from spears? And you realize that life here is a tapestry of toil and joy, woven tightly enough to survive even the sharpest storms. Outside, the cicadas sing again, the stars prick the sky. You stretch out on your mat, the bamboo floor creaking beneath you, and you let your eyes close, tomorrow will bring mud, sweat, and fear again. But for tonight, wrapped in the hum of kinship and the glow of firelight, you can drift into sleep. And now, as the fire burns lower and the drums of daily labor fade, let your thoughts soften. The mud, the storms, the endless baskets of rice, they blur into a distant rhythm. Slower now, quieter. Imagine the glow of lanterns dimming one by one until the village lies wrapped in silver moonlight. The world hushed under a soft, humid blanket. You are lying on your mat, the bamboo floor beneath you warm from the day's heat, the air alive with the gentle chorus of frogs and cicadas. Every sound is slower now, stretched out, softened, like the last notes of a lullaby. The smell of smoke drifts lazily, not sharp anymore, just a reminder that a hearth still burns somewhere close. Think of the ancestors, their names whispered at shrines, their presence woven into every breath. They are watching quietly, not demanding, not judging, just keeping company. The way fireflies keep company with the night, you do not have to work now, or worry about storms, or measure your worth in rice. For this moment, you only have to breathe. The stars drift overhead, patient and unchanging. The patties rest, mirrors of the moon. Tomorrow they will call again, but tonight they lie still, waiting with you. Let your body sink into that stillness. Let the weight of duty slide away, like mud washed clean from your feet after rain. In this gentle quiet, you are part of something ancient and enduring, a cycle that began long before you and will continue long after. You don't have to control it. You only have to rest within it. So breathe deeper, slower. Let your eyes close fully now. Let the village, the rice fields, the ancestors, and the stars hold you and drift into sleep